In a quiet valley surrounded by soft green hills, there was a small village called Riverbend. It was not famous. No tourists came here, no big buildings, no bright lights, just simple homes, dusty roads, and kind people who worked hard every day. Life in Riverbend moved slowly. Roosters woke the village before sunrise. Children walked to school with dusty shoes. Farmers led their animals to the fields. And every evening, families sat outside their homes, sharing tea and stories under the open sky. Among the villagers lived an old farmer named Thomas Hale. Thomas was in his late 60s. His hair was white, his hands were rough from years of farming. His back bent slightly forward. But his heart was gentle. Thomas lived alone. His wife had passed away many years ago. His only son had moved to the city for work. So Thomas spent most of his days with his animals. Chickens, goats, a few cows, and one donkey. The donkey name was Milo. Donkey Milo the donkey.
Good boy,
Milo
easy
was
now.
not special to look at.
Let's take a little
He was
walk,
small,
shall we?
gray in color. His ears were long and uneven. His fur was rough. Many people thought he looked funny. Some children laughed at him. Some adults ignored him. To most people, Milo was just another donkey. A working animal, nothing more. But Thomas saw something different. He saw kindness in Milo's eyes. Patience in his walk. Quiet loyalty in his presence. Milo had been with Thomas for over 8 years. Every morning, Milo helped carry vegetables from the farm to the village market. He never complained, never kicked, never refused. Even when tired, Milo kept walking. Thomas often spoke to him like a friend. "Good morning, Milo. Thank you, my boy. You're doing great." And Milo always responded with a soft sound. He would gently bump his nose against Thomas's shoulder. Their bond was simple, but strong. Sunrise a difficult year. That year was hard for Riverbend. The rains were late, crops grew slowly, food became expensive, many families struggled. Thomas struggled too. Some days he sold only a few vegetables. Some days none at all. But he never stopped working. Every morning, before sunrise, Thomas woke up. He made tea, fed Milo, packed vegetables, and walked to the market. Even when his knees hurt. Even when his chest felt heavy. Even when he felt tired inside. He had no choice. He had to survive. Boy, a new neighbor. One afternoon, a new family moved into the small house near Thomas's farm. A young woman named Sarah and her 10-year-old son Evan. They had come from the city after Sarah lost her job. Her husband had left years ago. She had no money, no support, only hope. Sarah tried to smile, but worry lived in her eyes. Evan was quiet. He walked slowly. He had asthma and weak lungs. Cold weather made him sick. Dust made him cough. Still, Evan loved animals. Every day after school, he came to Thomas's fence to watch Milo. "Mister, what's his name?" Evan asked one day. "Milo," Thomas replied. "Can I touch him?" Thomas nodded. Evan slowly reached out his hand. Milo sniffed it, then gently licked Evan's fingers. Evan laughed. A real laugh. The first smile Sarah had seen in weeks. From that day, Evan visited Milo daily. He brushed Milo's fur, gave him carrots, talked to him. Milo listened, quietly, patiently. Cloud with rain the storm. One evening, dark clouds filled the sky. The wind became strong. Thunder echoed across the hills. A heavy storm was coming. Thomas rushed to bring his animals inside. Sarah hurried Evan home. Rain began to fall hard. Trees bent. Windows shook. That night, the storm grew worse. Water flooded the low areas of the village. The river began to rise. People stayed inside their homes, praying, hoping, but nature had other plans. Around midnight, a loud crack filled the air. Part of the old bridge near Riverbend collapsed. The only road, connecting the village to the hospital was gone. Phones lost signal. Electricity failed. Riverbend was cut off. Alone, faced with mask, Evan falls sick. The next morning, Sarah woke up to Evan coughing badly. His breathing was fast. His chest hurt. He was burning with fever. Sarah panicked. She tried calling emergency services. No signal. She ran outside. The roads were flooded. The bridge was destroyed. There was no way to reach the hospital. Evan's condition worsened. His lips turned pale. His eyes became weak. Sarah held him tightly. Tears streamed down her face. "Please, please don't leave me," she whispered. She needed help. She ran to Thomas's house. Woman running a desperate request. Thomas opened the door. Sarah was shaking. "Thomas, Evan, he can't breathe, we need the hospital." Thomas understood immediately. But the bridge was broken. Cars couldn't pass. Boats were impossible in this storm. The nearest clinic was over 5 kilometers away. Through muddy fields, broken roads, strong wind, Thomas looked at Milo, then at Sarah, then at Evan. A decision formed in his heart. "We'll take him on, Milo," Thomas said. Sarah stared. "A donkey?" "Yes," Thomas replied. "He's strong. He knows these paths." There was no time to argue. They wrapped Evan in blankets. Thomas carefully lifted him onto Milo's back. Sarah climbed behind. Thomas held Milo's rope tightly. Rain started again, harder, Milky Way into the storm. They began walking, through water, through mud, through darkness. Wind pushed against them. Sarah held Evan close. Thomas guided Milo. Milo moved slowly, steadily. His hoofs found safe ground. He avoided deep holes. He walked where no human could see clearly. Several times, Milo stopped suddenly. Thomas trusted him. Each time, moments later, they saw broken ground ahead. Milo had sensed danger. After 2 exhausting hours, Evan became very weak. His breathing slowed. Sarah cried loudly, "Please, please, faster." Milo suddenly picked up speed. Not running, but walking faster than Thomas had ever seen. His ears pointed forward, his body focused. It was as if he understood. A life depended on him. Ambulance, the clinic. Just before dawn, they reached the small clinic on the hill. The nurse gasped when she saw them. Doctors rushed Evan inside. Sarah collapsed to her knees. Thomas leaned against the wall. Milo stood quietly, covered in mud, shaking from cold, but calm. After long minutes, the doctor came out. "He will live," the doctor said. Sarah broke into tears. She hugged Thomas. She hugged Milo. She whispered into Milo's ear, "Thank you." Milo blinked slowly. Sparkles, a silent hero. News spread quickly. The donkey who saved a child. Villagers came to see Milo. Some brought food. Some brought blankets. Some just came to say thank you. Children stopped laughing at Milo. Adults bowed their heads. Thomas gently patted Milo's neck. "You did good, my boy." But Milo didn't care about praise. He just stood there, quiet, humble, as if saving a life was just another day's work. The morning sun rose slowly over Riverbend. Golden light touched the wet roofs. Steam lifted from muddy roads. The storm had passed, but its memory stayed in every broken branch, every flooded field, every tired face. Inside the small hill clinic, Evan slept peacefully. Machines beeped softly. Sarah sat beside his bed, holding his hand. Her eyes were red from crying. But this time, they carried relief. Outside, Thomas sat on a wooden bench. Milo stood beside him. Both were exhausted. Both were silent. Thomas gently rubbed Milo's neck. "You saved a life," he whispered. Milo lowered his head. Seedling, a village changed. By afternoon, news had spread across Riverbend. People came to the clinic. Some brought food. Some brought flowers. Some brought blankets for Milo. Children drew pictures of a donkey with angel wings. Old men shook Thomas's hand. Women hugged Sarah. The village that once moved slowly, now moved together. They didn't see Milo as just an animal anymore. They saw him as a hero. Boy Evan's recovery. Evan stayed in the clinic for 3 days. Doctors treated his lungs. They gave him medicine, oxygen, warm care. Each day, he grew stronger. On the 4th morning, he asked one question. "Where's Milo?" Sarah smiled. "He's waiting for you at home." Evan's eyes lit up. That afternoon, Thomas brought Milo to the clinic. When Evan saw him, he tried to sit up. "Milo," he called. Milo walked slowly to the bed. Evan hugged Milo's neck. "I knew you'd come." Milo closed his eyes. For a moment, the room felt holy. Newspaper unexpected attention. 2 days later, something surprising happened. A small news van arrived in Riverbend. A local reporter had heard about the donkey who saved a child. They interviewed Sarah. They filmed Milo. They spoke to Thomas. The story aired on television that evening. And suddenly, people outside Riverbend knew Milo's name. Messages came. Donations arrived. A veterinary charity sent free food and medicine. A kind businessman offered to repair the broken bridge. A children's organization sent books and toys for Evan. Hope was spreading, not because of money, but because of one act of kindness. Pensive-faced Thomas falls sick. But life has a strange way of balancing joy with pain. A week later, Thomas didn't wake up early. Milo waited. No footsteps. No morning greeting. Milo walked to Thomas's door. He nudged it with his nose. Nothing. Inside, Thomas lay on his bed. His face pale. His breathing shallow. Sarah found him hours later. He had collapsed from exhaustion and dehydration. Years of hard work. Poor nutrition. No rest. His body had finally said, Enough. They rushed him to the clinic. Doctors said Thomas had severe weakness and heart strain. He needed rest, good food, medicine, time, but Thomas had no savings. No insurance. No family nearby. Sarah held his hand. Tears fell on his rough skin. "This man saved my son," she whispered. "Now we must save him." White Heart Kindness returns. Sarah shared Thomas's condition online. People remembered Milo. They remembered Evan. And they responded. Money was donated. Food baskets arrived. Neighbors took turns caring for Thomas. Farmers helped harvest his crops. Children fed Milo. The village that once barely noticed Thomas now carried him. One woman cooked soup daily. A carpenter fixed Thomas's roof. The shop owner refused to charge him. Kindness returned, tenfold. Donkey Milo waits. Every day, Milo walked to the clinic. He stood outside Thomas's room. Quiet, still, he didn't eat much, didn't wander, just waited. Nurses began calling him the guardian. One evening, Thomas finally opened his eyes. He saw Milo through the window. Tears rolled down his cheeks. My boy. Sunrise, a new beginning. Weeks passed. Thomas slowly recovered. He gained strength. Sarah found part-time work teaching at the local school. Evan returned to class. He carried Milo's picture in his bag. The bridge was repaired. The fields grew again. Life didn't become perfect, but it became meaningful. One afternoon, Evan stood beside Milo and said, "Milo, when I grow up, I want to help people like you." Thomas smiled. Sarah placed her hand on Evan's shoulder. Milo softly brayed. The wind carried the sound across Riverbend. Years passed quietly in Riverbend. Not loudly, not dramatically, just one day after another. But something had changed forever. The village that once lived in silence had learned the language of kindness. And at the center of that change was Milo. Sunrise growing older together. Thomas grew older. His steps became slower. His hands shook sometimes. But every morning, he still walked with Milo. They no longer carried heavy loads. Now they mostly walked for peace. For habit. For friendship. Evan grew taller. Stronger. His lungs improved. His smile returned fully. He helped Sarah at school. He fed Milo every afternoon. He talked to Milo about dreams. "I want to be a doctor one day," Evan said once. "So I can save people like you saved me." Milo listened. As always. School Evan's promise. Evan studied hard. Teachers noticed his dedication. A charity that had first helped after the storm offered him a scholarship. Sarah cried when she read the letter. Thomas held her hand. "You see," he said softly, "kindness keeps moving." Evan left Riverbend for college years later. But he returned every holiday. Every time, his first stop was Milo. He would hug him, tell him stories, show him books. Milo would close his eyes and stand still. Like he understood everything. Pensive face time takes its toll. Milo began to slow down. His legs weren't as strong. His eyes grew cloudy. Some days he didn't finish his food. The village vet said gently, "He's very old." Thomas knew what that meant. He started sleeping in the barn beside Milo. Just in case. One cold evening, Milo struggled to stand. Thomas sat beside him. He wrapped a blanket around Milo's body. He whispered stories from the past. About farming. About Evan. About Sarah. About that stormy night. Milo rested his head on Thomas's lap. His breathing became soft, shallow. The moon shone through the barn window. Milo took one final breath. And went quiet. Dove the goodbye. Thomas didn't cry loudly. He just held Milo. For a long time, the village came together. They buried Milo beneath the old oak tree near the river. Children placed flowers. Sarah said a prayer. Thomas placed Milo's rope on the grave. Evan, now a young man, stood silently. Tears ran down his face. "He saved my life," Evan whispered. "And taught me how to live." They carved a small wooden sign. "Milo, a true hero. Glowing star, the legacy lives on." Years later, Evan became a respiratory doctor. He returned to Riverbend and opened a small clinic. Free treatment for poor families. He placed Milo's picture on the wall. Every child who visited heard the story. About a donkey. About a storm. About kindness. Thomas passed away peacefully one spring morning. Beside Milo's tree, Sarah continued teaching. Riverbend grew, but it never forgot. Sparkle's final lesson. Heroes don't always speak. They don't always shine. Sometimes, they walk quietly beside us. Sometimes, they carry us through storms. And sometimes, they teach us what love truly means. Kindness is not loud. Hope is not proud. But together, they change lives. Donkey closing line.